Item number 2, declarations of interest and items on the agenda. Sorry, Chris, are you okay? Have we received any written request for dispensation? No. Nothing to consider, therefore. Thank you. Can we agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of May? Everyone happy with the minutes as circulated? Thank you very much. Great. Now we've got Police Constable Junaid Ashiq. He's here. Thank you, Junaid, for coming on this evening. How do you want to do this? Do you want to sort of say a few things and then...
I've met most people in there. I think I'll keep it brief, and then any questions either during or after, I'm happy to have a chat. But now I'm the local PC for Brickhill. I've been about 2.5 years now. So yeah, really, if at any point anything I might be able to assist with, or anyone have any great questions, more than happy to take on board, really.
Okay. Go for it.
The notification for the last coffee with a copy we did on Brickhill Drive,
Yes.
it got to us about 2 hours before we actually held it, and we subsequently found out that the Borough Councillors have known for weeks. So could you please not assume that the Borough Councillors are going to tell us because they don't? So we got completely.
The alerts that were through Colleen Atkins, and I give her a good couple of weeks to 2 weeks notice beforehand. So
Yeah. We're not seeing it, so how do we fix that? Because I would have gone to that if I'd known about it.
Maybe one of us can be the people he can contact then instead.
Well, I recommend emailing Sue, to be honest, through to the clerk.
okay.
So so these things are set up obviously in advance, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't get to hear back the last one.
No.
So how are we going to fix that? That's my question.
Would you be happy to...
When I set a date, I'll send it across the system straight away. But when we set a date, it's always 3-4 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
So we don't advertise it to do at the time. So if we do it beforehand, people forget about it. It's too early in advance. But
Yeah.
I'll make sure I send that across.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Junaid?
Well, I've got another one, which is what our perception that there's, or certainly my perception that we have a lack of coordination around speeding issues. The only thing we ever talk about in here to do with the police is speeding at the moment, thankfully, which is great, you know. But the downside is I perceive that we're talking not at cross purposes, but we're talking to different people about different things at different times, and I don't feel we've got a consistent story about what is it that we are actually trying to achieve and who's going to help us do it. That's my feeling. But do you ever get any input into speeding matters?
Yeah, I mean, to keep it simple, the best what I do with speeding is be out there on the street, out with speed gun, catching vehicles, sending off tickets to the court, and for them to issue fines and penalty notices. It's probably the most influence I have.
Yeah.
The other thing we did do when speeding was a priority back before Christmas, we had the automatic traffic counters set on Avon Drive and Brickhill Drive, and over a week period it captured I think 16,000 vehicles.
Yeah.
And that determined the average speed for both roads about 33, 34 miles per hour. So the majority of vehicles aren't speeding, and those we found who were residents of Brickhill.
That's all right, we want them prosecuted as well.
Yeah,
we
of
don't
course.
discriminate against people, you know, in Brickhill, out of Brickhill.
I think speeding approaches should be sort of joint with highways and the council. It is it's tough.
So where are we with that work that whoever it was who did the speed detection on Brickhill Drive, where we've already got average speed cameras, so we've got their time?
When we originally wrote to the Chief Constable, he came back to us and said that there was going to be some additional speed checks done, and also Inspector Hunt was going to be involved in liaising with the Parish Council. Now, I went to Alex Wilden, and he came back and said, yes, speed checks have been conducted on Brickhill Drive, but that's where the average speed cameras are, aren't they? So you shouldn't be picking up, you shouldn't need to do that because that's what the speed cameras are doing, aren't they? So I went back to him and said, have you got the right road? Did you actually do them on not Brickhill Drive but somewhere else? So he hasn't come back yet, so I didn't know if, do you see what I mean? If actually he wasn't on Brickhill Drive, but he was somewhere else, and get some idea of what the results of that were, really.
I can leave you see what's happened there and get back to you when the most recent set of patrols regarding speeding was carried out and what the results may be.
Can I clarify then? You mentioned the 16,000 people, was it cars?
Vehicles, yeah.
So is that using the data from the average speed camera? That's
From
there.
the counters, yeah.
Oh, the counters.
So that's how quick the vehicle goes over the counters, that picks the data of the...
So
That's
it's not
what
the,
we see.
not the average speed camera data then?
No.
That's what you've already discussed.
No, this
isn't
is
it?
the report that came in some time ago, and we went through it in great detail.
Yeah.
Peter had worked it, all the numbers out and done the stats.
Yeah.
And we're not satisfied with the average speed argument at all, because a significant number of people are doing more than 60 miles an hour on an even drive. Like every day, there's 20 or 30 people every hour doing 60 plus. That was the problem that came out of the numbers. That's what we're trying to address. So it's not like we're not focusing on people doing 30, 35 or even 40. It's the people that are consistently doing 60 plus in a 30 limit, which is absolutely dangerous, right, and unacceptable. So that's where we're trying to tunnel into that. The Chief Constable's letter, unfortunately, was factually incorrect and stated that they would be service vehicles using the speed exemption, which is not correct. Right? That is absolutely not true. So we're trying to just tunnel into what actually is going on, particularly the issue that came up out of the numbers was Avon Drive, which is literally just basically right outside here. So that's where we're trying to get to, and it seems to be quite a long-winded process just to try and tunnel into that. Yeah. So that's where we're at. So
the results show that 90% of the 33,000 vehicles exceeded 30 miles an hour. 90%. And
So
the maximum was 82 or something, 83.
Is it fair to say though, in terms of speeding, you're not really the primary person we need to engage with? Is that fair to say?
In terms of the longer term solving issue, probably not.
Yeah.
In terms of like short terms and being out there, yes, but to address as a whole.
Yeah.
I absolutely accept that. However, what we've got the Chief Constable who sent the letter that is incorrect. We've got Inspector, who was it? We've no idea what they're doing. Right, they appear to have wasted their time doing speed checks on an area that's already gone with average speed cameras. And we've got yourself, who actually is the person that actually stands up in front of us, which is a bit unfortunate situation to be in sometimes, right? So this is the frustrating thing, is who's actually taking ownership and where are we going? What do we need to do as a parish council to focus on it? You know, absolutely accept it. The residents probably doing the problem in the first place, you know, but that's by the by. We want to see some action on it really, because we're concerned about the very high speeds that are being recorded. You know, yeah, that's really the thing.
Yeah.
And personally, I suspect it's the same people every day doing exactly the same thing. I've got no evidence of that. I suspect it probably is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Anyway.
So if you've got any tips for us on that, as to how to engage and who to engage with, please. You've heard who we've been communicating with.
Yes.
Should we stick with the same people? Is that the...
I think so.
Sort of on the spot.
I wouldn't know to really.
Inspector Hunt would have
Actually,
to
that's
be-
my inspector, yeah.
Well, we can give them a cookie as well.
I haven't emailed her, but she's never come back to me. But I thought there was little point going to talk to her about organising a meeting until we'd heard back from Alex and the new speed checks he was doing. If he'd come back and said, you know, whatever, then you'd have had more to the ears, wouldn't you?
Can I move on to another topic, if that's all right? So
Okay, but I don't feel we've really nailed down
we need
what's going to happen.
We need to
next.
persist with, I
who?
think it's Inspector Hunt, I think. Well, so Sue's saying we need to clarify with Alex what they were up to, what they've actually done,
Yeah.
and then I think it's Inspector Hunt.
So by the next meeting, if we haven't heard anything back, we'll go back to the Chief Constable and say we're not getting anywhere
That sounds fair.
there. Okay.
Okay. Can you just clarify, Junaid, who else do you have in your team and how does it work?
So, I don't know if numbers here. So we have dedicated at least one PC for each ward in Bedford and Kempston. We're short on PCSOs, they'll cover either 2 or 3 wards at a time. For Alex, for example, he covers Brickhill and half of myself, I cover Brickhill and the Parish. The community team I found is ever rotating. You have new officers, I think I've probably introduced a few to Sue and a few other councillors. The last couple of years they've been changing. But like any other department in the police, we are short on resources, which is unfortunate, but we try as best to meet demands.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Chairman, is it worth mentioning speed watch? Because I know Alex asked me, and
I
I did go back to him and say about more information.
So I've asked Charles and Wendy on their street service to feed that back, but what they've fed back to me is that because the residents shouldn't don't want to do it, they shouldn't have to do it because it's not their job, sort of thing. It's mine, which I appreciate, but that's the thing with speed watch. We don't have anyone interested in Brickhill, is what they've passed back to me.
Well, have you ever asked them?
We have before, and it did start up some years ago and then it died a death.
Right.
But that was with the SID, speed
We
indication
used to
device.
have the device at the Brickhill Community Centre. It was stored at one
Yeah.
time in the cupboard. Problem, I think, for some people with the speed watch is it's getting more. There's more motorists now threatening the people who are doing speed watch. I don't know whether that you find that in the areas you cover, but I certainly do in the areas I cover elsewhere. And a lot of people have stopped doing it simply because of the aggression, with motorists often stopping and getting out and actually, well in one case, hitting one of the people doing it. Because they're often local people who get caught, as you say, by speed watch. And therefore they know often the people who are doing it, actually. So that is one worry, I don't know, for a lot of residents these days, that you are vulnerable doing this, aren't you? As just an ordinary member of the public, that's hard, but there may be people who are keen to do it, aren't they?
If there are any names anyone comes up, please send across an email and we can get that set up.
Yeah.
Because I think we need about minimum 4 or 5 people to start speed watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I move on to ask about something else then? We've had the crime stats for May for Brickhill, well, for the whole borough, and just looking at Brickhill, there's been assaults, criminal damage, shoplifting, stalking, burglary, drugs. Is there anything particular going on from your point of view?
As of late, so what speeding, it's been mopeds and we've ancestral behaviour from the Brickhill drive shops with use, drinking. That's been the most prolific issue, should I say. Because our priority is drugs, but that's subsequently died down a lot. But that's probably in recent time I've seen mopeds and ancestral behaviour.
Okay. And in terms of setting priorities, at one point we had these sort of meetings, rotating meetings, which stopped, and there's no longer a setting process involved anymore. The pub involving us.
No, it's now determined by surveys that we complete, street surveys offered to the co-ops and we send out, and I think try to achieve a couple hundred, and if we meet that demand, then our bosses feel there's no requirement for a meeting with 2 or 3 people when we've got nearly 100 to 200 surveys from people who are in Brickhill, because they specify which area and what the main concern is, and we'll use that to determine the priority.
Okay.
So I think with that, these cluster meetings.
Well, that's a meeting with the PCC rather than
Right,
with the
okay.
police itself. So we'll
Right,
come on to
fair
that
enough,
in
okay.
correspondence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else for Ginny? Alistair?
Sorry, I just one more time. I think the only time we've ever had, as far as I remember, in the recent history, serious crime has been drug related. I think that's probably, that seems to be the generator of serious crime. I might be wrong there, I don't know, but certainly in Brickhill, we've had a couple of serious incidents in the recent past that were drug related, but you're saying that's less of an issue now? Or?
Yeah, I mean, like in too much radio, there was a lot of action carried out earlier this year in Alfred Court, which has seen a significant decrease in activity in Brickhill. So.
Good, that's good to know.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, please.
So in Woodlands Park, there was a bit of antisocial behaviour in the week, where there was a couple of youths that just walked down the street of Ashmead Road. They've been caught on a couple of cameras, and then one decided to pick up the scooter he was on and throw it at somebody's house, and I think it hit the house. I don't know if it hit the door or the window or something, but it hit the house. I don't know how to go about that, but people weren't very happy on the estate. I don't think they were from the estate. What do you think we should do?
Any report? We're still throwing out somewhere, criminal damage, did it cause any?
I don't know, because I didn't actually speak to the person whose house it was thrown at, but they had a camera that captured it. and they then put it on the Woodlands Park Facebook page. And a lot of people had commented about it. It's quite scary because it was a normal size scooter and he just picked it up and flung it at the house and ran off. But I think antisocial behaviour is going up in Woodlands Park that we're not sort of controlling much of.
The other thing I want to just touch on that, I don't know if anyone here has influence, but the gate used to, is it 8:30 used to be closed, the car park?
Yeah.
As you enter?
Yeah.
When, for a long time that doesn't happen, that's we find a lot of people who aren't from Brickhill congregating in the car park because there's no cameras, lighting's quite low, and then getting up to no good because that barrier, no one's come to close the barrier. I don't know, is there anyone here who can...
Well, there was a rota, but
There was a rota.
It died to death, because again, it's volunteers.
It wasn't volunteers, was it not that
Yeah.
somebody else had taken over it?
Because there used to be a sign saying 8:30 these gates will be closed, and there's a number for the council, but that...
It was
It was Michael Jarman, who was one of our councillors. He was doing it with, I thought, a few other people. But it may have been a bit down to him at the end, I don't know. But yeah, it was done on a voluntary basis.
Oh.
And it's obviously an onerous thing to do. I mean,
Can we start that again? It would be better
We
for
need-
the...
again, we need volunteers for it. And need enough people to agree to do it.
Yeah.
And probably need to make sure people put some signage up. I mean, it's have to liaise with the Borough Council because it's the Borough Council's car park.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
If people are willing
I
to.
don't mind starting something up to open and close the gate.
Yeah, that would...
If the
Yeah.
council...
yeah.
Do we have to ask the council then because they've taken over?
Who had the key then? There must be a key. Somebody, Michael
I
had
don't
it.
know.
Michael,
I don't know how it locks, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But she's got
Got a massive key.
somebody knows.
I don't know
I
this.
think somebody knows.
Okay. Oh, Chris.
It was on a coded key, coded lock.
It was.
Nobody knew the code for.
It was a code on a lock. There was no key to
Combination.
that. It was a combination lock.
Yeah.
So we know the lock code
Okay.
has changed.
It has changed. Well, we can follow it up and let's talk to the borough first. Let's say we're interested in starting that again and just see how many people we can get to volunteer.
I
That's
think
going to be
Yeah, I can put a little ad on Woodlands Park sort of
yeah.
to see if anybody would
Okay.
volunteer. I'm sure there would be.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. If there's nothing else, should we move on? Thank you, Junaid, for coming on this evening.
I'm happy to stay if you guys are happy to have me.
Yeah.
You can stay as long as you like. It may not be as exciting now.
It's not often I get to come to these, so
Yeah.
when I can, I'll
We'll see what's going on. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on to the public open session. We have 2 members of the public here. I know why Chris is here, but do you want to speak, ask, say anything?
No, I'm sure so.
Oh,
See what you're after.
when you find out, please let us know. Right, it is public, so this is the 15 minutes which we allocate the public to say anything they want to. Chris, I know obviously appreciate why you're here, but do you want to say anything about anything else?
Not really, no.
That's fine.
I know you just said about putting things on Woodlands Park page. I think I'd like to see a bit more activity on there from the Parish Council. Quite a lot of people ask things on there all the time, and I'm always commenting below, contact the Parish Council, this is what you need to do. And I'm sure they are doing that, but it might be nice to make yourselves a bit more visible sometimes to them.
I'm in there, but I'm not using Facebook much at the moment. I'm definitely
Yeah.
simply missing comments, I think.
You're talking about the Woodlands Park Facebook
Yeah.
site, not.
I find that when we did put stuff on there, people basically attacked each other
Oh yeah.
for no reason, and it became really nasty. So I thought it was best just to leave it alone.
Yeah.
But I think we will redo things. And I will monitor it now and put more stuff on it.
Yeah.
And I think I'll be starting to walk around and start to do a bit more.
Yeah.
In Woodlands
Even
Park.
things like, did you know there were speed cameras and we caught 33,000 cars, for instance, doing the speed limit over a week? We talked about posting something like that up might make people a bit more aware of speeding.
Well, speeding happens in Woodlands Park as well.
Yes.
As you know, Ashmead Road is brilliant for that.
Oh yeah.
But this is what we're talking about. Is it Avon Drive or Brickhill Drive?
Avon Drive.
Avon Drive is where
I can annotate something like that on there if you want me to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, we can also put that on our own
Yeah.
Yeah.
website,
Yeah.
right? And we've got our own
Yes.
facility which we need to get under control, but yes. So, yeah.
Gerald, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the PC a question, actually.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You talked about speeding, and there's been a lot of discussion of the... What I find really nuisance is cyclists on pavements and the scooters on pavements. You get a lot of people complaining.
We have the scooters because how silent they are and how quickly they go past you.
Yes, they are dangerous, yeah.
No, they're still illegal scooters.
Yeah. So, do you have people
Um,
complaining about them?
No, it's if we out and about see them. The problem we have is with scooters is you have people who use them for genuine reasons, even though I know it's illegal to commute to work, but you have a lot of use using them for the wrong reasons. And when they're out on these scooters without protective equipment and whatnot, and then we try and stop them and they don't and they carry on, we then have no power to carry on due to the risk it causes if they get themselves knocked over or hurt someone else, and then it's not worth the outcome of that, just stop them. And we are. So when we do, they can be issued a ticket. The scooter's taken off them, but then they can collect it the next day from the police station. So then we're back to square one until the courts decide whether it may be. I see really, so it's just a repeated cycle.
Do you know roughly how many given tickets to?
Not force, I'm sorry, I wasn't stats on me.
No, no, just...
Myself personally, probably like 20.
Thank you.
So just reply to that, e-scooters are illegal on roads as well as paths in Bedford. Completely illegal.
You can buy them, you can go to Halford
You can buy them in Halford, but you can only use them on private land.
Yes, I realise that, hence my question about...
Okay. Is that okay, John? Can we move on? Thank you very much. So we're on to item 6, to consider and agree action with the co-option on the Parish Council. So, Sue, do you want to talk to this?
So we have vacancies on the Parish Council. We're able, as there's been an election, to then co-opt, so it doesn't need to be the normal procedure when there's a vacancy, which is we have to notify the Borough Council. If 10 electors say they want to have an election, then we have to have an election and give people the opportunity to go through the system of submitting nomination papers. But because there's just been the May election, that's technically means there's been a recent opportunity for residents to have a democratic say in who's on the Parish Council. So we are now free to co-opt. How the Parish Council choose to do that, they can consider candidates and decide. So they don't have to co-opt, they don't have to do it immediately, but they can consider people as they come along. And that's essentially it.
So last time, in our meeting last month, we talked about the form to ask people to fill in.
Yes. But you were going to draft a note to go with it, weren't you?
Oh, right.
Yes, you agreed at the last meeting
Okay.
to do. I mean, I have sent to Chris, for instance, I did send a note. There was a slight concern I had because right at the top it did imply that people had to have a certain level of education. Technically, that's not, shouldn't be in there really, because people can come on the Parish Council with all sorts of skills. Quite nice to
talk about Sue, sorry to play.
You know, you remember last time at the meeting, Mark sent out some information, a legal note, do you remember?
Oh,
From now, and there was
a
a sort of, I don't know, not so much a tick list as to what was suitable, but there was a, all I was saying is that we do have to point out that you don't, there's an implication at the top of that about education, vocational qualification, whatever, technically, as Parish Councillor. You can have people on there who are practical, who are good at, you know, not necessarily having a degree level education. But I did send that out, and people then can submit. But the only person so far that's actually asked for anything has been Chris. And the plan was to send more out as people came forward. I put something basically out through our social media, just simply say we've got vacancies. you know, please contact us if you're interested for more information and so on. And I think you were going to do a little note that's going to go with it as such.
Yeah, I take the educational things definitely, if you like, not particularly relevant. But that was a form from NELC who wrote that thing. So we could amend that form, or we could live with it and just sort of cheerfully ignore. You don't have to take all this. We can take this points into account to whatever degree you want.
Yeah, just to clarify then, you know, the NALC form is a legal briefing that covers you for legal correctness. There's a specification of things they suggest as being essential and some that they consider to be desirable. However, as a parish council, we could write the criteria to suit our requirements, and whether it's based on that or not is entirely up to us. And I've seen a number of documentations from a number of councils that have different things in them. I think the main thing is that we get somebody that's interested in local affairs, local matters, and is prepared to do something to help fix stuff, really, would be my feeling on it. Clearly you need to be a resident of Brickhill and meet the residency requirements and all that, and be over age and all that malarkey, but the rest of it is really up to us.
Yeah. So in terms of the process then, are we rereading what we mentioned last time, please? Yeah, so what essentially the key thing was, or one of the key things we wanted people to confirm, if you like, their planned contribution to the parish council, what they would like to do, you know, if co-opted. Okay, right. I'm going to move on. Okay, to receive a report from the Borough Councillors. Anything received from the Borough Councillors? Anything by email?
No.
Nothing, okay.
Could we chase them up to always give us something at least a day or two before the meeting?
If you reminds it.
Yeah, I will go to them, yeah.
Right. Okay, I'm going to move on then to item 8, financial matters. Item 8.1, to agree with bank reconciliations and any accounts for payment, which have been circulated.
Yes. There is the, on that list, the community centre, I think that's underway now. Bachelors were in the other day doing work, and I think we're going to get updated on the £20,000, aren't we, that needs to be transferred yet.
I can say my famous line, the cheque's in the post.
Oh, not a cheque.
Why checks? Why not just
transfer it?
Bank transfer?
No, we don't do bank transfer, you can have a cheque.
Oh dear.
What's
So
wrong with
£20,000 cheque I've got to pay through.
Is it in a bounce?
So when is the cheque? If it's in the post, it's how far in the post is it?
Well, would you like to take delivery of it tomorrow morning?
Well, you could, but I'm not in tomorrow. But
You're not in tomorrow?
No. Monday will do. I'll be in Monday.
Right.
It's just that I always like, although we have money in the account, it's a bit like personal banking. I quite like the money before I pay out £11,000.
Absolutely. But I will bring it into your hot little hands on Monday.
Yeah, I thought it comes to the office and it's in an envelope marked for me. You can do that, it's fine.
So when are we due to pay the 11,000?
Well, now. We've got the invoice come through, haven't we? We've got till the 16th of May, actually, let's be technical.
June.
To June, yeah. And I don't know about the electrical work.
Okay.
But I understand the electrical work. I've emailed you. I'm not sure what's happening with that because I think the person concerned could do some work on certain days next week and they couldn't do anything for ages.
So let's just finish off the first one. Are we okay to agree with the reconciliations and accounts for payment? First of all, yeah? We'll come on to the community centre.
Well, the reason I'm saying it is
Yeah.
because we may not need to settle that on the 16th of June if actually everything's shunted
Well,
onwards.
we can agree it, but you don't have to necessarily pay it.
Okay.
Subject to.
Okay.
So on the support for children in need funding, have we received anything at all
No.
from Scott?
Not yet.
So
It's half term though, of course.
it is not done.
And our meeting was close to the start of the half term.
It
wasn't
was, yeah. So we have to leave that until next month. Okay.
Okay, so you're moving it on again?
Yep.
Well, I just had the embarrassment of being asked you quite frequently from the others, what's happening? They gave their paperwork in months ago now.
Well, we'll give Scott, if we give Scott until later into June, so we can meet and discuss it in advance of the July meeting.
So once you've got it, are you going to decide who's going to meet to discuss it? Because you really want to come then back to the July meeting with an answer, don't you?
Yeah, if we're okay to, should we arrange a meeting where anybody can turn up, if you like, and discuss it? Because it's a recommendation from Parish Council, not a decision as such. So, can we aim to meet it towards the end of June?
A physical meeting or a Zoom call?
Zoom would be easy, wouldn't it?
Well, some people don't like Zoom. I'm quite happy with either, to be honest, but
What would you prefer, Alistair?
I would prefer that we set the criteria before we set the hair running, is what I would prefer, but we can't go back in time and we've got to deal with where we are now, actually. But having said that, you know, we've now got to fix the criteria for something where expectations have been raised and they're probably going to be disappointed. So, you know, but that's okay, we are where we are. So I'm happy with a physical meeting or a Zoom meeting, but I just want to see it done.
we'll put a date into back end of June. We try and set the date at the end of this meeting, maybe?
Yeah.
783, sorry, the cost for electrical work at the community centre then. So the concern I had on that one was that we were getting sort of bogged down a bit on the electrical work, which could put at jeopardy the actual ventilation work itself. So hence asking Sue to send out the confirmation of the order for that electrical work. Because my worry was that if we caused the delay to the ventilation work, we could end up with an even higher cost for that, and that's the bigger ticket item.
Yes.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah. I think she's authorised that now, haven't you?
She did, but yeah, it's slightly contrary to what we said last time. If you can be slightly contrary.
Yes, right.
But it seemed, I just thought it was safer to get that out of the way so we could hopefully get the actual main piece of work done
Yes,
on the date scheduled.
yes. It's a question of access, that's all.
Yeah.
Because they're all set to go, aren't they?
Super.
No, that's just got
I'm
to
sorry,
happen.
Angela.
So how do we avoid the situation occurring again where a piece of work that actually had no financial implications on the parish whatsoever, that we had nothing to do with, suddenly ends up costing us money because as far as I can see the work was not specified correctly in the first place. So how do we make sure that never happens again?
It's a lesson for us to learn.
Yeah,
I guess,
absolutely.
and it's an unusual one because it obviously was grant funding which was applied for and which was, you know, it was successfully applied for. And I just think in the specification we maybe hadn't realised in full the implications.
No one realised the electrical thing wasn't included, I think.
Do we review the quotations that are asked for the community centre as a parish council?
I don't think we need to unless we've been asked to actually pay for it.
Well,
in the sense that...
Well, what's just happened though, Mark?
Well, no, but I'm saying, you made a comment saying review quotations. And I'm just saying only the ones which come to us should be reviewed.
Sorry, but I don't accept that. Because this has now hit us with a cost that we did not know about for work we've got nothing to do with. So how can that happen, right? And how do we make sure that never happens again? And that if we're going to pay money, we know what it's for up front, that we're part of that process. How does that happen? Because I don't think it's acceptable that we just get a quote thrown at us for a piece of work that we had no engagement with.
It's unlikely to happen again in the near future as a starting point, I would say. Because if you just think back to what we've done in that area over the past few years, and I think it's the first one for quite a few years actually that we've been certainly the first one that's happened in that way, because other ones, I mean some of the other items we've done, sort of trying to remember previous quotations we've been involved with the community centre, some of the work, structural work we've done.
And the other work we commissioned, it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we knew what we were paying out, or you knew. The difference is this was we were not inputting into this, were we? Other than to pay the bill.
Okay, so how do we stop person or persons unknown getting quotes for work on the community centre that then end up impacting us? How do we stop that happening in the first place? What else is out there that's going to come back in and say, oh no, by the way, we've only got a quote, we've only got the money for half of it, and somebody else has got to pay for it.
Well, I don't think there is anything else, honestly.
Well, you don't think there is, but you don't know.
Okay, I'll say more definitively, there isn't anything else.
Right. Okay, so we will never have to be in this situation again.
Never's a very long time, but I would say
Absolutely it is, but I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know how it happened. You know, I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing to ask the question of. How did it happen? And what are we doing to stop it happening again?
we need to, I think collectively we need to learn that lesson, and we will just act accordingly.
What are you going to do to make sure it never happens again?
So,
what action is going to be taken? Who's going to be engaged? It's no good learning a lesson. What is the lesson? The lesson is we're paying money for something that we had nothing to do with, right? What are we going to change to make sure that doesn't happen again?
I think we can send a message back to the community centre, could we not, Stuart? Along the lines of, if there was something of that same nature, there's an expectation about the timescales and process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We need to obviously fit in with our particular meeting process, but equally looking at the full totality and make sure we do get those proposals reviewed so that we're clear what is covered by.
Yes, I think the basic problem was that there was a time scale which had to be met in order to achieve access to the 20,000 from the Borough Council, which, yes, so I think that was the basic problem. So,
would it help, Alistair, if we were to officially communicate with the Brickhill Community Association? We could sort of put that in writing. That sort of.
Well, I'm pretty staggered that we don't do it already. Well, why have we not been doing that already?
Well, we haven't needed to.
Well, we've done work. We've done work on the community centre because we did the lift pit and whatever else last year, didn't we? We have done ventilation.
Yeah, but that's been done through
works.
the clerk, through Sue,
Right.
directly, and not through the centre. Yeah.
Well, we need, we absolutely have to stop it happening again. And as far as I can see, there's nothing at the moment for us next month to say, oh yeah, by the way, we've got grant money for something else, we have to do it really quick, boo hoo hoo, and actually it's not enough, and you're on the hook to pay whatever else, you know.
Well,
what is the budget that we spend on the community centre anyway? Have we spent it all now?
No.
I mean, that's the other thing, have we even got the money?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
In terms of our maintenance budget, yeah, we've got the money. I'm going to suggest, Councillor, we note the comments.
Yeah, no, we've paid the money, right? We'll get the grant money, we'll pay the shortfall or whatever, but I feel we've been railroaded into it, really.
Okay. I don't think it's going to happen again, because I don't see, the probability of happening again is like minimal.
But
if not zero.
But I think I've made my point now.
Yeah.
That thinking it's not going to happen again is not enough. Thinking it's unlikely is not enough. Right? That's not enough. We need to be better than that.
That's probably
We
saying
need,
based.
to, we need to know it's not going to
Okay.
happen again.
I would say, based upon sitting here for 20 years.
No, don't say it again, Mum. Don't dig yourself in any bigger hole. Right? It's not enough to say you don't think it's going to happen. That's not enough, right?
I'm quite happy for us to communicate officially with the Brickhill Community Association if that helps.
Chairman, maybe Councillor Grant could write that or draft it, and then
What would you like us to draft?
what you've just
Please
said.
stop putting us in the hole for money without telling us what the hell you're doing. Is that what you want? Because I'll do that if you like.
Well, that's
Because
basically
that's what I think has happened, right?
But that has to come from a parish councillor, not the clerk as such. If you
Okay, so the chair's not going to do it. What you're saying, the chair won't
well,
do it?
no, I don't know, is it?
Because he's happy to just sit there and say he thinks it's not going to happen again.
I'm saying somebody
Well, I'm
has
saying
to
that's not
so.
good enough, so I think we need a better communication with the community centre.
What I would say is
So are you going to draft something, Mark, is the question?
I would recommend, I accept what Alistair's saying, I understand where he's coming from. I would recommend that we sort of formally agree a form of words now, just to get the thing out of the way and done, which directly addresses Alistair's concerns and hopefully I think is reasonable. That,
well, you could ask them to identify what works they're thinking of doing for the rest of this financial year.
well, they're not planning anything else that would come to us for us to spend money on.
But get them to put it in writing. Get them to put that in writing.
We can note the situation, we can note what has happened with the ventilation system. We can note that the electrical work was not included in the quote and had to be addressed quickly in order to allow the works to go ahead. Yeah. And we can note that we don't want this process to happen. We don't want this process to happen again. We expect the quotation, the proposals to be officially consulted with the parish and agreed with the parish council before anything is signed that requires parish council funding.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
That's correct. Are you happy with that, Alistair?
Yes, thank you, Sue.
You get all that, Sue?
Yeah, I've got all that.
Ah, more than me. Okay.
It's okay because I'm recording on my phone. Yeah, so you've said it all and I've, yeah.
Oh, well done.
And it's only because afterwards but I can always play it back, I can always watch our recording, Mark.
Okay. Right. Alistair, thank you
You're welcome.
for sharing those concerns. That's good.
Thank you for listening.
Always happy to listen.
Thank you for being here.
Right, I'm going to move on to item number 9, to receive an update on Waveney Green issues and agree any further action. And again, Sue, you've got some comments in your report.
So shall I whiz through?
Please.
Should we do the play inspection last and go through some of the others because
Okay.
others might be quicker to do and then come back. Alistair and I were on Waveney Green, me for part of the time, but Alistair for the rest, looking at the tree works. And so he had a look, or we had a look at the proposed works to extend the surfaced area, didn't we? And I think Councillor Grant had a few concerns. So that's why I put it here, because if you remember, the talk was about me getting some quotes, and I thought the logic is to do that when I get quotes for the play area works.
Yeah, absolutely. So the play area works, and the extent of the extra hard standing or whatever it was that you were trying to do, I mean, it wasn't clear to me what it was we were trying to do. It sounded like it was the access to and from the school, but that is already hard standing. what we're talking about now, I think, is from the path to various bits of equipment or something. It wasn't clear to me what the problem was or whether we were
It's
trying
extending.
to solve
If you look, obviously, when it's especially wet, you can see where all the mud is. So it's extending the hard surface around near the school entrance and to access the play equipment and gym equipment.
I think the bit that Alistair was concerned about isn't the access to the gym equipment bit, because that made logical sense. Because there's not a lot to extend it so somebody can walk onto the green gym equipment from the path. I think his concern was that large scooped area, which is next to the new swings, that is where the children decide to run and slide on while they're waiting to go into school. And I think his concern was that was a very large area that actually he didn't feel it was necessary to do that.
Well, I think it was one of these things where what is it we're trying to achieve and how much is it going to cost, and is it really a priority for us? That's my fundamental gist of it. What is that? What is the size of that area that we're talking about, and how much is it going to cost?
It's never, in all the years I've been on here, ever been an issue.
Right.
We've never had the school come to us and say there's been an issue. It's only when we had the really wet weather that we've had this last year, when it was a quagmire there, and the school said about putting bark down or whatever. But we've never had it as an issue, that area, before. But it's also how big of an area. It won't be cheap to do the area we've talked about, that big area. And I'm not sure whether that necessarily helps, because the children can just run further out, and run further out and further out. Part of that is really parents keeping the children on the path and not skating in the mud really on the grassy bit. But on the other hand,
I mean, I think really it's also a question of what are we going to do on Waveney Green, in terms of the other things that we really need to do, which we'll come on to in a minute. I think about trees and stuff. What have we got in the budget? It's all. You know, I'm happy to say there's all sorts of things we need to do, but what realistically can we do, and what's the priority list? And I think this is part of the thing around trying to figure out what the management plan for the green is. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about the tree?
Well, I think there's an argument, a strong argument for saying we should extend the surface area that gets very muddy, just because the reality is it's a mess. But so I think it's worth getting quotes that allow us to understand what the cost would be for the different, if you like, permutations.
my suggestion is that bit that you're talking about, that extra, would be about £12,000. I put my money on, because it's quite a big area.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you do it in jungle mulch, which is that jelly stuff, I don't know that that's going to be really ideal, because that can get quite slippy. If you then go for wet pour, that's extremely expensive, we know from what we've done elsewhere. So 12,000 might be an underestimate. That's not including the bits to extend. That's a big amount of money that was not necessarily identified to be spent this year.
Right.
Was it? So it might be something. It would take a big chunk out of Waveney Green Reserve, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I know that, and that's.
But we need some quotes first of all.
If we get a quote and look at it, then that's fair enough. But I mean, for that kind of money, I mean, it is expensive to do that kind of thing.
Okay. Next item.
What shall I say? Wildlife area on Waveney Green. I have now spoken finally to the person who was tasked way back at the end of March to give us a quote. He has said it has slipped through a net, and he's going to measure it this week and get the quote to us. So hopefully that will come, and I'm hoping we can agree that between the meeting. Hopefully it won't be that expensive, but it needs doing, doesn't it? And then we can get that on with that. Yep. We'll come back to tree works, because I think these are the bigger issues. Dog bins. I did eventually get James Lynch at the Borough Council. You've seen the email, and he's come back and said, well, they're actually our responsibility. I've gone back to him and said, yes, if we pay to get them swapped, will you actually still empty them? Because that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've asked him to give me a price per bin, because really we want the borough to do it, and then they will empty them. So part of trying to buy bins. And then once that came back, you could then say, well, get the 3 on the green. What about the other 2 on the edge, which are not too bad at the minute? Are they our responsibility, or are they the borough's, because they're on the edge of the green? I'm not sure about those.
Right.
So I'm waiting effectively for the court, and I'm sure once it comes back, you're going to say yes, get them done, aren't you, I guess. So that was that one. So coming on to issues, other issues, it doesn't sound major, but it could be. There's a hole in the footpath near the Palmer's bench. I've sent a picture of it. It's probably a hole about this big, but we will need to get something done. I did speak to the person who came out to look about putting in new benches, Sean, to see if it's something the borough could do, because I wondered if it's just that liquid bitumen that needed to be put in just to fill it. And so, but he said no, it's not something they could do. So we will have to get some quotes to do that. So I will do that.
On the basis of bitumen type filler?
Well, I mean, as he pointed out to us, if that was to be done, what you might call properly, you'd end up digging most of that footpath out, because you'd have to dig a big trench in it and actually reinstate. And as he was saying, probably at the minute, it's not bad enough to do that. You would be better getting that filled with, when you see paths to it with it filled. Because otherwise it's going to be expensive, and as I've said before, we've had such difficult year this last year. We don't know what next year is going to be like, and whether it will open up more, whether we will need to get the path redone. It might be better to do an intermediary thing and see how it goes, depending on the quote, because as we know, footpath works, £10,000 goes nowhere on doing bits of footpath. So maybe if we could get a company to bitumen fill it, put that liquid filler in, it might at least tide us over for a couple of years or more until we see how things go.
Right.
I don't know. That would be my suggestion.
So that's it. So going back then to the
trees.
Trees.
Tree work. Well, again, Alistair and I were on the green, mainly Alistair, because I went off. We looked at the Christmas tree, and presumably then he went off and looked at other things.
Yes. Would you like me to update you on the other things?
Especially the Christmas tree.
Start with
The Christmas tree. Right, now this is an interesting one. Let's start with that. The Christmas tree is a juvenile cedar, which is in exceptionally good condition. It is a potentially fantastic long-term asset to Waveney Green. It is likely to grow to 4 to 5 times the height that it is today over a period of the next 30, 40 years. So it's a major, significant asset. Interestingly enough, it will outlast every other tree that's on the green, and particularly, although it's a side issue, those horse chestnuts are not in a good condition. They look good now, but actually they're not, and they might not last very much longer. Now, having said that, I'm not minded at all to suggest cutting that cedar, otherwise known as a Christmas tree. I think it would be the wrong thing to do. I think, if anything, we need to find another tree.
Is that the advice from the tree person?
Absolutely. Yeah. He said you can do it, but you're going to basically butcher it.
So there is a smaller smaller Christmas tree elsewhere on the green.
He reckoned they'd be good for 5 to 10 years at their rate of growth. So in other words, although it might be painful, if we can find a way of running the electrics to the smaller tree or trees, that might be the way to do it. Because, thinking far ahead, that cedar tree could be a significant feature of Brickhill, actually.
Right. So on that one, then, presumably we have to get a quote for the actual electrical work.
So
if we are going to move, so just to go back again, the challenge we had is that the guys are finding it harder and harder to get the lights on the tree, and we're probably going to run out of
height.
It's height. So
and width.
Yeah. So probably moving to a new tree this Christmas would be a sensible thing to do.
So shall I go to the borough, because it has to be the borough who do it, and ask them to perhaps meet up on the green and look at the options with the other trees.
Yeah.
What are the options? Because I seem to think the reason that one was chosen was because of where the light column was. It was literally on the edge of the
Well,
green.
it's the best tree. It was the best one.
Yeah.
Well, it was, but it was also to do with the electrics. Certainly
Yeah.
when I met up with, I think Gareth, he said that was a good one because of the distance
Right.
and also the lighting column. So it might be worth making contact with the lighting team at the borough and arranging perhaps to meet up on the green and look at the options with the trees and the lighting situation, and also where they are in relation to what we want to use it for, i.e. groups of people gathering. I don't want one in the middle of, in the middle of the trees, do we? Okay.
Right, so that's that. And then on the other trees,
The other stuff, we've had complaints from Francis Grove, trees overhanging. Had a look down the back of the green along the fence line. There's a lot of self-set ash that needs to be cleaned out, and the proposal is to clear out a 2 metre width as much as possible along the green, and it's all self-set stuff and ivy and whatever. It's not, there's nothing significant there that needs to be looked after. So that's what the quote is going to be, as and when we
So is that all behind Francis Groves and behind Falcon?
I'm coming back to Falcon. Yeah. Strangely enough, in the corner between Francis Groves and Falcon Avenue, there's a natural break anyway where there are no trees. And the other issue, which was 23 Falcon Avenue, that is willow, which needs to be coppiced. And it has been done, but some years ago, and it's just been left to go mad. So the proposal there is to coppice it, and by this time next year you'll get another 2 to 3 metres growth on it again. So it's something that naturally will just regrow on top of that. So I thought that was fairly realistic. The only other thing is there's a pine tree which is dead right directly opposite Dart Road, and the proposal there is just to remove it and get the stump out and then just grass it, and then we can see what we want to do, whether we want to put another one in there or whatever. But at the moment it's looking very, very sad for itself. So really that was a quote for the works, which I don't think we've received yet.
No.
So that's where we.
So the 2 metre width, is that along them Francis Groves?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right.
We've got to be a bit careful there because some people have actually supporting their fence with the trees, with bracketry, but we'll work around that.
Okay.
so we'll get a quote first and then decide.
Yeah.
We need to get, I'll try and contact another company. I haven't heard back from Simon Elwyn.
Okay.
So probably would be good to get another one.
Okay. So can we move back onto the play inspections then?
Yeah, so I've broken them
So
down,
summarise.
yeah. I don't know, it's easy to understand, not easy to understand. I've tried to identify what I think are play area repairs, what I think is groundworks, i.e. stuff needs reinstating the ground to build it up, and others that are, various random things like paintwork, rusting, etc. I think it's really a case of deciding what you spend your money on, really. Because the problem with some of the, nothing is high risk. Everything is low risk. Not saying that you shouldn't fix it, but maybe we need to have a look at what we do choose out here. Because things like the litter bins are rusting a bit. Well, okay, we're not going to get them painted, are we? Long term, you probably would perhaps look to replace those. And bits and pieces of paintwork rusting, again, we could get somebody in to do those. There are only little bits and pieces here and there. Cleaning algae and so on, again, we could get a company into
Well, I think
pressure
I would recommend that all the items which relate to the actual play equipment themselves, where there's missing inserts and bolt cap covers, etc., we should, that's one piece of work to get all those sorted out.
The biggest one, the biggest issue remains the gate at Mosbury Walk, which closes too quickly and has these openings that are too big. That we've had a go at fixing. Our PM came in and did what they could, but they've not been able to fix it enough. I suspect what's going to end up happening is they're going to have to take the fence out, reposition the fence to reposition the gate, because what they've done at the gate hasn't improved it enough. So I think probably get contact a couple of play equipment companies, RPM again, but also another company, and get them to give us some quotes for, especially that's going to be the big issue. That's going to be the expensive bit. The others are, just putting a few bulk covers and things in. The other thing that keeps coming up, and there's nothing much we can do about it, lack of information on the equipment for the Green Gym about using it. Certainly, RPM, who've done work for us, have said it's really difficult to get that from this company we're dealing with because they no longer make that equipment. So you can't really stick something else around this from another company. So I will try and see if I can find out more about the company itself, because it's their equipment. We need to see if we can get something on it. So I don't think he means logic would be have some big sign up saying how to use each bit of equipment. I can't see how you can attach it to the equipment, because the equipment, is not big enough to actually put something on it to show how to use it.
Having said that, it is relatively obvious.
Well, I know, this is the thing,
We do
and
not
that's
have
what...
to be fair, we do not have a diagram.
No, and that
We
is
do not
what
have a diagram.
Reed's Playground Medicine said, really. It's like, if you don't actually understand that you're meant to sit on a thing and row it,
You
then
probably shouldn't be on it.
I don't know what the problem is, really. You can see what you're meant to do. Anyway,
So you're going to get quotes for the
gate.
and can you get quotes for all the
Yeah, all the bits and
equipment
pieces.
related
Yeah.
items?
And I didn't know with the groundworks, where there's trip hazards around the edges and so on, that is where the ground is sunk.
Yeah.
It's not the equipment, it's the ground. So I wondered whether to contact the borough as well and see if we could perhaps meet up and have a look at some of the areas that they're talking about, because I think that's what it needs. It needs filling up, Okay.
Okay. Is everyone happy with that? So we've got two main bits plus the borough.
Okay.
I just feel like we do a lot of work on Waveney Green, especially the park. I mean, we spend a lot of money on doing things there.
That's the
That's
nature
the
of the
only
beast.
place we do
Yeah.
anything on. It's like we don't do anything else apart from the Waveney Green sort of
Well, it's
park.
Moseby Park and Waveney. They're the two.
That's behind
there are
here,
two
yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Mostly walk, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with Woodlands Park is that's all borough.
Yeah.
And the problem is to try and take over, even if you wanted to do it, we took over Muswell, that would be a huge expense and it would be a huge logistics challenge. It's bad enough trying to maintain the play area on here and there, really, isn't it?
Right, shall we move on then to item number 10, to receive an update on Woodlands Park matters?
Not a great deal on there. The bench, while I mention it, these new flat benches will be going in on Waveney Green soon, because they're in, they've actually got them at the borough, and so that will be going in. And I've asked him to redo Palmer's bench, the one that's uprooted. So I've asked him to do that when he does the others. And so, having said that, the new bench on Westrock Way is part of that package. So again, he will do that as soon as possible. And I think we're going to look at places near the pond as to where you could have another location, another bench.
Yeah. We did say halfway through the pathway. I think maybe one day we just need to take a walk over there with one of you,
Well, all we
at
need
least
is
to mark
really a
over
picture.
where, because I did take
When you're
photos.
fit.
Yeah, when you're
When you're
fit.
fit.
Just,
I'm fixed completely. I walk everywhere. I even go to work. So
but what I'm thinking is,
It's
just
doable.
under photo, it helps us with going to the borough for them to come out
Yeah.
and look.
Okay.
So yeah, that'd be good. Okay, and that's all I had on that. Then we're on to NDP, I think, which is you, Mark. I don't know what
So, only thing to say on that one is that we need to ask the Parish Council to do the screening process, which is put it in paperwork for next time. But it's going to be us having to make that decision about it's a legal thing, and I'll explain it all in more detail ahead of the meeting. I'm going to bounce on to you now. But basically, Bedford Borough doesn't do that for the parishes, and apparently it's one of only 2 borough councils like that in the whole of the country, so we're privileged. So you'll see more later about that. And really it ties in with the next item, which is the newsletter. So our last parish newsletter was February 2020, funny enough. So just before the pandemic, and we need to get it going again. So I'm going to suggest that we need to obviously agree to do so. We have it in the budget, and we don't need to get back into the game of doing newsletters. So
Let's borrow it a minute.
Yeah.
So I don't want to disrupt your,
No, but what I suggest, what we did before, obviously we had a mix of advertising, other bits and pieces, and I think it's worthwhile we can reach out again to the people who did advertise previously, we can see if they're interested again, but there'll be stuff in there which will relate to the development, neighbourhood plan rather, for Brickhill, and we just need to get it going. So, I did mention it at the annual parish meeting. I mentioned it to the schools that we're interested in having anything from them. The timing's not great because probably by the time we get it back, because we're getting back up to speed, we may be too late for their summer fairs, which are typically at the beginning of July. But at least we can see if they want to put anything in to give us, flavours.
So are you happy with stuff in from the school? Because I used to feel we weren't keen to have a great deal in from the school. Because
I think it's great. If they can give something which is useful, which is of interest to the public in general, they are a big part of the community in Brickhill.
Okay.
So why not?
But they also do publicise their own stuff, don't they?
Not to the general public though. There is a bit of a us and them between, most organisations. It's just trying to break down the barriers, I think. So are we happy to restart and see how it goes? Oh.
Could I suggest that, as it's going to be the same people doing it, that the neighbourhood development plan needs to be in a much better state before we divert effort onto doing a newsletter? Because I feel that we've not made any progress on that, and if we're going to start putting things in a newsletter about the neighbourhood development plan, it's not in a state where anybody can really look at it, as far as I can see. And I am concerned that we're not going to get, it just never seems to be anywhere close to getting finished. And to me, I'd rather spend 2 or 3 months getting the neighbourhood development plan sorted out and then start thinking, great, okay, we don't need resource on that anymore, now we can start thinking about something else. I just think we're going to dilute effort and just end up bogging down again. That's my concern with it.
I don't think it's going to be a big deal to actually produce a newsletter. The challenge is typically delivering it.
Well, precisely. I mean, there's a certain amount of time that people have got to put into parish council matters.
Yeah.
And the neighbourhood development plan has been going on for at least 2 years now, maybe more. And there's nowhere near a point where you can put it in front of a member of the public. So, are we going to start another thing going that's going to take resource, or are we going to try and finish the neighbourhood development plan off? That's my concern.
You won't finish it off as such in the short term. We're going to get it to a point where it looks like a reasonable document. Yeah, that's for the neighbourhood plan. Excuse me. But I think we just need to get this going again. I hear your point. I hear what you're saying today. But I think we just need to get something out there as part of our re-engagement with the community.
Well, I think it'd be interesting for you all to send me content about the Parish Council to go in it, and then look how much that content takes up in terms of this. Because we do want to see the bulk of this, really. Parish Council is meant to be our newsletter, and that's all that worries me, is we end up with anything but everything, except anything for the Parish Council, really. And we also will need to think about advertising. Every year, the back of that was advertising a particular company. They don't do that anymore. So we've got a whole back page to fill that we never had to fill in the past. And all I'm saying is I want to see some content, because I put it together. I want to see how much you're going to put in that isn't just what we get from the schools. So we're actually promoting what you do as Parish Council. That's all I'm saying. It's hard to fill this with nothing, really.
Yeah.
It really is hard. So if you've got content, great.
I think we can actually do it fairly. It's actually fairly easy, especially with these photographs.
So
Good choice.
please send them. And some content, and we can then have a look at what we could put in it. That would be the main thing. Because we've always in the past, we've had this discussion where councillors have said, yes, we've got lots of stuff, and then nothing ever comes to me. And I end up with trying to fill it with anything and everything really that will fill a gap. So that's just a waste of your money printing it. So yeah, that's all it really requires, doesn't it? Okay.
Well, I think we should be aiming to publish one in the end of June, beginning of July.
End of June.
Around that same
End
time
of
frame.
June, beginning of July. So we
Aim
need it. I need the content within about a week.
But can we clarify with, I would say 2 weeks for content. Would you mind checking with White Hart what their current prices are?
But we did, didn't we? I'll go back to them again.
And,
So the same as this, was it?
probably
It was eight pages
Yeah.
or whatever.
4 sheets A4.
Mm-hmm. And you're planning for this to go out the end of June.
End of
Okay.
beginning of July.
Okay.
But I'm aiming to get that. And certain bits I need to add into that neighbourhood plan, which will just get it to a point where it's good enough, I think, to be shared. Because we need to do that next stage, Alistair, don't we? Which is the community engagement part.
Absolutely, yeah, I fully agree with that. I mean, my observation from the document that you sent through a couple of weeks ago was that it's not changed in about 6 months. But I mean, I might be wrong.
No.
So I don't know quite how you think it's going to get changed in the next couple of weeks or or month. I just don't see how it's going to happen. But maybe it will.
You need to be confident you've got enough deliverers if that comes out. As you know, there are lots of boxes of,
Yep.
And if you haven't got deliverers, that's hard.
But that's all part of getting back into the game of doing a newsletter again, because it's sort of, it's a bit of a circular argument.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm due
Right.
to be away for part of the end of June.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'm flagging. Well, if it's okay, that's fine.
Mm.
But I won't get the newsletter done and somebody else will need to
Well,
do
we'll go
it.
into the details. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Right, can we move on to the 13? So Chief Constable, police speed data, which we talked about a bit before. Is there anything else we want to say on that? Or have we covered everything? So we had the advice from Junaid, which is basically waiting for the feedback from Alex,
Yeah.
and then recontacting Inspector Frost. Hunt. Sorry. Phoebe. Hunt.
Sorry if I can interrupt. I think it's worth making contact anyways. I think it's worth making contact regardless. I will get in touch with Alex.
Okay, thank you.
It's worth chasing it up.
To make contact with what? At Inspector Hunt, is that what you're saying? Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Item 14, to receive a report in the annual parish meeting, which we held on the 23rd of May. We did it virtually.
Yeah.
It was good to get the Scott and Brickhill primary schools came, and Thomas Horse School came as well.
Mhm.
And we had a report from the guides and Wendy Ryder. And we had a written report from Hartwood Nature Reserve Group. And then we reported, Peter and I. No general members of the public were there, which is a shame. But again, it ties back to publicity and how do we communicate and what have you. And I really think we do need to set some dates for, set the dates, try and set it further ahead and try and have a face-to-face meeting and encourage members of the public to come, because it is actually for them, it's not for us. I know it's a legal requirement, but it's also an opportunity for people to actually find out what's going on. And it's really interesting to hear the schools and hear what they're up to, and fantastic work. So, any other comments on that annual parish meeting? All happy? Well, thank you for those who made it. Good. And move on to correspondence then, if I may. Various emails have been circulated. Just call out a few of them, if I may. First one I want to call out is this East-West Rail group. They're meeting next week. Next week, so I guess. And it is a virtual meeting, and I know we said last time we agreed that Stuart would be the representative of the parish at the meeting. Now, I know Sue, you circulated the Zoom link for it, but we are, based upon what happened when they launched the local representatives group in 2022, they asked for one person per parish council, presumably because they wanted...
Thanks, Junaid.
Oh, thanks, Junaid.
Junaid, before you leave, can you give me your number, please? Because if there's any queries or anything, then I can contact you. Is that... Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think it's, I presume we'll have to limit ourselves to one person at that meeting.
Please see.
Right. But Stuart, you can't do it because it's online.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, does anyone else want to do the meeting, is able to commit to attending the meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, I can do it. Okay.
I've done that.
What's that, sorry?
So Peter Mantle has volunteered. So Peter, if you do attend, or when you attend, please, give us your feedback to what's going on. I've read the agenda, and it seems rather innocuous. Well, who knows? They're just going to. Sorry, the agenda itself is innocuous, but what's going to leave from it, I don't know. And actually, just to pick up on what was said earlier, this route does go through Brickhill Parish.
Does it?
Yes, it goes through a further field. It goes to the other side of, I've now forgotten the name of the house, the old house at the top end near the drink farm.
Yeah.
Highfield, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it goes that side of the house, not this side of the house.
Okay.
So it is, from the point of view, the built-up part of Brickhill is definitely better. But there's lots of questions, obviously, about what they're planning to do, and I have no idea what their timescales are. And the bit I'm interested in is around footpaths and access and all that kind of stuff. So if you can maybe keep your eyes and ears open for that one, Peter, can you? Anything else on that item about East West Rail? If Peter's attending that. Okay. Any other correspondence you want to talk to?
No, there was only that cluster meeting, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, so the Police and Crime Commissioner has asked us whether we wish to have a meeting with them. Are we interested in a meeting with the Police and Crime Commissioner? I'm going to suggest we should say yes. I'm really annoyed about them because essentially they sort of... I went through the background of this one just for information really. We were going to have a meeting in August 2022 and the Commissioner was unable to attend because he was stuck in London, even though it was going to be an online meeting. And then the next thing we heard was that they announced in 12th October 22 they were going to cancel the meetings for 2023. And then they said, oh, we've cancelled the meeting for the meeting on the 19th of October, which we hadn't heard about. And they said they cancelled it because of the lack of attendees, which was ridiculous because we didn't receive an invitation for it. So, but they're now asking, do we want to meet with them? And I guess I'm just suggesting we should say yes. Everyone happy with? Right. Thank you.
I say yes.
Yes. And in your notes, Sue, you mentioned about the Falcon Avenue footpath diversion.
Yeah.
So you replied to the Borough Council to say we prefer it to be along the footpath, along the tarmac path. Okay, let's see where that leads. Any other correspondence items?
Not that I saw.
No?
No.
In which case, no, the next meeting is on the 6th of July. And then we can close. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.